How's punters? Welcome back to the last best sports betting podcast for 2021. It's going to be a short one. There's not too much to chat about other than a couple of highlights of the year, some upcoming Premier League, and of course the Ashes series that's going on. Simon's with me as always. We're going to be back next year sometime, so probably mid late January we'll be back with the next podcast episode. But we'll have lots of content coming up on the channel until then. But yeah, guys, Simon's with me as always. Simon, some sporting highlights for the year. Pretty crazy year thinking back on it.
Yeah, it really was. Just thinking about this, we actually had some amazing sport this year. We really did. And obviously, after a quietish year the year before, where there was a lot of rescheduled matches and postponed matches and cancelled tournaments, I think we really had some epic sporting moments. Yeah, Rob. What was one of your biggest highlights?
Gosh, it's so weird just with Corona and all of that. Trying to think back on what took place when. um,
Yeah.
but there was the Lion series. There were the Euros. I think those two are the ones that really stood out for me. And then obviously the Cricket World Cup as well. I really the T20.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that as a highlight.
One of the sort of the biggest highlights, I think, in terms of South Africa was just our rugby. I think it was quite a sort of almost you could call it a sort of turning point in South African rugby. And two results which really like stand out to me was obviously South Africa beating the British and Irish Lions 1916 in the final, which capped the series 2-1 to the Springboks. We were massive underdogs for that. Obviously, playing
Empty stadiums, yeah.
playing in empty stadiums and playing obviously away from home as you always do. So that was a big one. And then obviously we also beat the All Blacks as recent as October, and that was in Wellington. We beat them 31-29 in the Rugby Championship, and it was a bit sad that didn't, we still it wasn't enough to win us the title. But I think that was an epic result nonetheless.
Yeah. Some epic rugby. The epic rugby was really good this year. I really enjoyed it too.
Yeah, and we can't forget, of course, obviously England losing to Italy in the Euro 2020 final, which was obviously played in 2021, but we had a 11-1 outright winner there on Italy as quite big outsiders, which was very nice.
Yeah, and just thinking back to that, it feels like it was so much longer ago. Even though it was like 3 4 months ago, it really wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, July.
Yeah. So the year, or 6 months. So the year has flown, but I don't even remember the final score. I just remember Italy winning it. So I'm not exactly like I.
I think I think it was 2-1. But it went to penalties. It was 1-1 and then it went to penalties, I
Yes, it went to
think.
penalties, and there was all that
Yeah.
drama after the
Yeah.
penalties. Yes.
And then,
Okay.
obviously, the most recent. I think no one could argue that this Formula One season was, if not one of the best, one of the most interesting to watch. And obviously, Max Verstappen winning that drivers' championship after, I think you couldn't argue, one of the most dramatic final laps in F1 history, whether it was fair or contrived or whatever you want to say about it. It was still an absolutely epic finish. So I think that really sort of topped off an actually incredible year in sport. I think, looking back, it really was one of the better ones, I think.
Has there been a lot more, any more talk about that kind of loss? Like I know the last
Well,
podcast we touched on it, but it's been a week now, so I'm sure everyone's been able
yeah,
to
so
digest things a bit better.
Mercedes did appeal it initially, and then they dropped their appeal.
Okay.
I think they just realized that they weren't going to get anywhere with it. Look, I think you're never going to get the FIA to reverse a decision. It's going to make them look like absolute fools.
Yeah.
So they won't do that. And I just think that, from the Mercedes team, they probably thought, you know what, let's just get over it and concentrate on next year. There's been some speculative opinions in the media, which I think are very far fetched. That, oh well, maybe Mercedes won't even compete, or maybe Hamilton won't even compete next year, and this and that.
No nonsense, man.
I don't think there's anything to back that up. But look, it's I think that Toto Wolff was very open about. And I can't disagree with him. I'm very open about how he thought that decision was completely absurd, and obviously changing the rules sort of at the last minute was not on. But the fact of the matter is they've dropped their appeal, and they've accepted the results, and they just got to look forward to next season.
Yeah. So great season of Formula One racing as well. I think it's the closest that I've come to actually tuning in on a regular basis,
Mm.
which says a lot. Especially over the last couple of years, I've just been completely tuned out. kind of like I've been tuned out of the NFL this year. I honestly have no idea what's going on. I have
Yeah, yeah.
not
Well,
been following it at
we're
all.
moving close to the playoff picture now. So it's going to be interesting to see. Hopefully, with a little bit of holiday, or maybe get some time to watch a couple more games. But yeah, as we mentioned before, it's just so tricky, with the early kickoff starting at 8 o'clock on a Sunday. It's a little hard
Yeah.
to watch. But yeah, maybe the playoffs should be interesting, and hopefully we have a good Super Bowl final.
And then some other sporting highlights from the year from your side.
No, I think that's about it. I mean, those are the ones that as I said, I think South African rugby has really been something which is sort of capped it all off. But I think, yeah, those the Euros, the Lion series, obviously South Africa beating the All Blacks, and I think that an epic finish to the Formula One season were some of the highlights for me.
All right, then let's move over to the Premier League, which is picking up in pace towards December. I think Newcastle, it's safe to say, are relegated. I mean, gosh,
Yeah,
like I called some nice juicy wins on handicaps and all of that there, and I mean, it was such a gift to be
yeah.
honest. Even though the
I mean,
odds were terrible, going down 4-0, Newcastle.
yeah. Well, yeah. That was interestingly enough, though. We were talking about that Liverpool handicap, and I was saying, I just, a team like Newcastle playing against Liverpool, where Liverpool will feel that they can just outscore their opponents. I think there's always a chance that the opposition score, and that 2.5 handicap actually didn't come through for Liverpool because it
Mm.
ended up pretty much what I expected. A 3-1 sort of result, with Shelby scoring in the 7th minute for Newcastle. So, yeah, I mean that handicap loss. But you're absolutely right. I mean, Man City slaughtered Leeds 7-0. Um, well, that was one of the biggest victories I think we've seen so far this season. I don't think we've seen one quite that big as far as I can remember. But yeah, on the second match day, on the match day 18, we only had 4 of the 10 scheduled games that actually went
Yeah,
ahead
a lot of
because
Corona and all of that.
COVID's, yeah, seems to be kind of running rife through the league at the moment. But I think the two biggest takeaways, I think, for me over these last 20 games, this double game week, was that, I mean, Chelsea had a very disappointing 2 games. They drew 1-0 to Everton and 0-0 to Wolves,
Mm,
which actually makes them that they've now slipped down to third place on the table, while at the same time Arsenal have actually climbed up to fourth into the Champions League places because they thrashed Leeds 4-1, as if City's thrashing wasn't already enough. So shame Leeds have conceded 11 goals in their last 2 matches.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and then City, as we mentioned, they lumped even more misery on Newcastle, so they beat them 4-0. So City are now 3 points clear of Liverpool at the top of the table. And as I said, Chelsea have moved down, and then Arsenal are now sort of looking like they're contending. So it was quite a lot of moving around near the top of the table this last double game week.
Yeah, I mean, shit, there was only the one match on the Saturday, I think it was. I think it was the
Yeah,
Arsenal game.
yeah. But only 4 of 10 of the scheduled games actually went ahead. So yeah, not as much action as we expected.
So it's going to be quite interesting to see how they make up these matches. I wonder
Mm,
when that's gonna come into play.
yeah.
But yeah, let's have a look at some of the matches. Well, before we go to some matches that are coming up, let's have a quick chat about some of the cricket where Australia are
Mm.
looking dominant. Again, another easy win for them. Won
Yeah,
by what,
sure.
like 400 runs or something like that.
They won by 275 runs, but I mean, that seemed like more than that. I mean, they
Well,
again,
they would set
Australia,
them a total of like 400. I can't, yeah, something else.
y- y-
Yeah,
they set them, yeah. So Australia batted first. They scored 473, and they actually declared. So they
there we
declared
go.
after
Okay.
9 wickets. So look, it was always going to be a bit of an uphill battle, I think, for England. I mean, Australians scored 3 centuries in their top 4 batsmen. So yeah, I mean,
Jeez,
they
crazy,
were
yeah.
absolutely dominant. Yeah. So I mean, England managed to score half of what they put on, which is, I suppose, almost expected when Australia scored 473. But England did bowl much better in Australian second innings, and they got them out for 230. But day five was quite interesting because England needed to hold on to, like, they only had 3 or 4 wickets remaining, and they really were their only chance of getting anything out of it was to force a draw. And Joss Butler actually managed to block his way to 26 runs off 207 balls. But he was eventually bowled out by Richardson. And then after he went out, they needed to literally, like,
Yeah,
defend those
just block it
four
out.
4 wickets in it. I mean, he did well, but Richardson bowled him out, and then that was kind of England's hopes out the window. I think it's one of the lowest strike rates I've ever seen. His strike rate was 12.56, which means he scored
Jeez.
basically a run in every 8 balls before going out. So, yeah, as I said, Australia then ended up winning by 275. And I saw quite an interesting stat on Sky Sports, and they said now that it's been 4,000 days since England last won a test in Australia.
Australia, yeah. Looking like a
So that's
5-0
like,
series, eh?
oh, I mean, I suppose they of course they will play the five, even if Australia do go up, win the next
3-0,
one, and
yeah.
obviously go 3-0. So yeah, who knows? It could well be. Yeah, not
What were
not
your
looking
thoughts
good.
for the upcoming for the third test?
So I mean, look, I must say, I you can get Australia to win at odds of 1.45 on the three-way market, and I actually think there's still a sniff of value there. I mean, this is obviously a much bigger price than the 1.18, which is available on the two-way market, which would obviously get your money back in the case of a draw. But I mean, look, draws in test matches aren't that uncommon, but I don't think the England team have a good enough batting lineup to even squeeze a draw. I mean, if Australia bat first again, I think you could quite easily end up in a situation where England are trying to block out a draw. And, that's only if they don't lose outright, which is obviously there's a very good chance of that happening as well. So I just don't think that
Mm,
England have the firepower to kind of stay in it if that situation comes up again. So I think a draw is more unlikely than usual. So I think you're basically getting free money by taking that 1.45 over the 1.18. So I actually think there's still a little bit of value in Australia at
okay,
1.45.
interesting. Yeah, I
Look, it's
mean,
England's last chance for redemption. So who knows? They might just cause an upset and win the test and try and stay in the series. But
it's
I
also
think
Australia's chance to wrap the series up. So,
exactly. These kind of narratives you must always take with a pinch of salt. But
hmm,
I just think, honestly, I think 1.45 is actually quite decent odds in Australia. So yeah, I pretty much see it going that way.
that's quite lucky. I might stick that in a couple multis. Let's jump
Yeah.
over to the Premier League matches for the weekend. We'll see how far we get if we get a little further than that. Um, we've got Liverpool versus Leeds. You expect Liverpool -5.5 here is going to be a good bet, Simon?
Sure. Yeah, we were talking about big handicaps the other day. I mean, it's sure I
Two and a
could.
half on this one on Liverpool as your handicap.
Yeah. No. I mean, I realized that I didn't think it would be any bigger than what we had against Leeds or against Newcastle. But yeah, again, the 2.5 is. I don't know.
It's
It's
big.
not tempting for me, but
No,
it's I guess it's a 50-50 situation, which is really what the bookmakers are trying to create when they create a handicap. So yeah, I don't know. Not really an opinion on that.
Liverpool and over 2.5 goals maybe.
Yeah, possibly. I can't imagine those are great odds either, though. Huh?
No, there is just no great odds there. It's just not looking good for Leeds. I think good luck to them
Yeah.
over the weekend. I don't think they're gonna do too well. If I've got any fantasy league players in Leeds, I'm taking them out this weekend. um, Wolves, Watford, not interested. Norwich, Arsenal. This is a pretty interesting spot for Arsenal, playing against probably one of the worst teams in the league. I fancy them on the handicap here. I know their 1.45 isn't great, but I think they should win this one like 2-0 at least, something like that.
Yeah, I must say, even though odds of a price of 1.45 away from home is quite small, I mean, Norwich have won 3 of their last 20 games. So, I think that's look, Arsenal are in great form at the moment. But I think that 1.45 actually doesn't. It actually looks a little bit tempting to me, honestly.
It is.
It is. I think that's a great one to throw in an accumulator. Looking at this further down the board, though, I think one of the most interesting looking games for me actually would be Spurs and Palace. And I think there's definite value on Palace here. Obviously Spurs held up Liverpool to a 2-all draw, which obviously earned them a point. And I think that's this price on Spurs has kind of been helped by that. And I think, I mean, I'm very happy to back Palace double chance there, and a bet where you can get that at odds of 2.05 or 21 to 20. So I think there's some definite value. It's a London derby. I mean, Palace are just one of those teams as well. We talked about it last week. I just think that on their day they can really pretty much beat anyone, and there'll be a good atmosphere on this one. So I think that looks like a very very decent price on double chance. Palace 2.05.
Okay. I'm not sure about that game. It's a game that I'll definitely stay away from. Yeah, Palace I don't trust enough. Spurs I don't trust at all. So,
Mm.
yeah. City versus Leicester. City favourites there, 1.2. Should be a comfortable win for City. I'm looking at the Aston Villa Chelsea game. That game could be quite interesting. You think it's an opportunity for Villa to maybe slip one over? I mean, it's a very kind of bold opportunity in that sense. 3.7 on the
uh,
draw no bet Aston Villa.
it looks. I mean, the thing is, this is. I suppose you could say, well, Chelsea had their worst week ever in the Premier League so far, right? In
Yeah.
18 weeks. So, the question then you have to ask, obviously, is like, is this a good bounce back spot for Chelsea to like play against one of the, well, not weaker, bottom half sides, should we say?
Yeah.
Or is it a sign of Chelsea's form that they drew their last two games against pretty mediocre teams and now go with that trend? So I think it just depends on which way
Mm.
you look at it. Um, I would be more inclined to think that Chelsea is a very high quality side, and it was just a little bit of bad luck really that
Speed
they
bump.
that they drew the last two games. Yeah, so I would be very wary with getting on a handicap against a team like Chelsea.
So you fact,
Look,
well,
Chelsea
what
kind of.
about the 1.7 here on Chelsea?
You mean on their match odds?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I would far rather back Chelsea than Villa
Okay.
in this situation. 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm just not sure with
yeah.
Chelsea at the moment. And Aston Villa aren't looking that bad. They do seem to be
No, they
picking up
they,
some
they look
form.
absolutely. But yeah, I think that a team with the quality of Chelsea, I think they will come out of this place and try and push their way up the table again.
And then I've got a banker of the week for you, Simon. It's United to beat Newcastle.
I don't know. Hey, I must say,
I know.
I'm not so sure about that one. I mean, look. Obviously, I think there's no doubt about it that United have got a better chance of winning that game. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I would back United in that spot at those odds though. I think how Newcastle just have those games every now and again. I don't know. I just
I
got a
don't know. I
sneaky
don't think they're
suspicion
going to
that
have
them.
any of those coming up soon. I want to say this is going to be what's it, the absolute blowout winner.
Look, I suppose now that they know that they're pretty much relegated, they might. Then you could make an argument for the side that, oh, well, they'll feel more relaxed now, and they might just kind of
Concede
like
another
play
10
without
goals instead of
any
5.
any nerves. Yeah, it could go either way. But there's the one game that I must say it's a little bit it's a slightly longer odds, but a bet that I like in the second half of the double game week is when Leicester host Liverpool, and I think that look, over 2.5 goals is obviously a safer bet, but I like taking the bigger odds at over 3.5, and you can get that at 13 to 10. And I think taking the bigger odds there makes sense, despite it being a little bit riskier. So that's a bet I quite like for the second half of the game week.
Okay, I was looking at the second half of the game week. I fancy Arsenal to beat Wolves at 1.7 as well. This is
Mm.
odds seem pretty decent there.
I saw that as well. I must say I was expecting slightly smaller odds too, and I think the value on Arsenal there comes from the fact that Wolves kept a clean sheet against Chelsea.
Yeah,
That's. I mean, I don't think many. I don't. They might even be the first team, or I can't imagine that maybe City have. But I don't think many teams have kept a clean sheet against Chelsea. So I think that's definitely inflating those odds on Arsenal a bit. So I think there is a bit of value there. In fact, I think there's a bit of value in Arsenal in both their games at 1.45 against Norwich and at 1.71 against Wolves.
I also fancy Chelsea against Brighton at 1.4.
Mm,
It's not bad odds facing Brighton playing at home.
yeah.
It's much better
Yeah. No.
than
Sure.
the 1.2 that you're going to get on City to beat Brentford.
Yeah. No. I couldn't agree more.
And then after that, we'll have Everton taking on Newcastle. I think that's probably going to be a nice, comfortable win for Everton there.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously, it's certainly fancy United over Liverpool more, but yeah, probably a safe bet as well.
Right, and the last match of 2021 is going to be United against Burnley. United 1.35 there is a bit too short for me.
Yeah, I agree. I
Like
agree.
like 1.45, 1.5, I might be interested, but I
Yeah,
think
I
that's
mean, it's not against
potentially
the
a
ginger,
trap.
not against the ginger Mourinho.
No. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up the podcast for today. Simon, you've got some plans for New Year's, I assume?
Not for New Year's yet, but I do have a mate who I haven't seen in nearly 2.5 years now from the UK coming down, and I'm going away with the family to Agulhas for a few nights, and then when I get back, a friend from the UK will be back, and we'll probably make some New Year's plans, but not 100% sure exactly what's going on yet. Yourself, Rob?
I don't know yet. I'm still recovering from the old COVID that I had. Nothing too bad, but just tired.
Yeah,
So I just want to take it easy for a couple of days, and I don't think I'm going to do much over New Year's. It's just
yeah,
I think it's going to be one of those boring
fair enough.
Corona years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, guys, thanks for everyone who tuned in this year to the podcast. We appreciate it. We appreciate the support. And as I said, we'll be back next year towards the late January. There's going to be some content coming out still. It's going to be pretty slow though. I'm going to be doing a stream this week, and then I think that's probably going to be the last stream of the year as well. Probably pick up with that in the middle of next year. But I do have some content recorded and ready to go up. For the casino fans. So guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next year. Have a good one. Best of luck with your Premier League bets. Have a great New Year's, everyone. A good Christmas, and we'll catch you then. Cheers.